Раз.
It's the 19th of March. Media Center Ukraine is starting its work. My name is Svetlana Chaparenko. Let's will speak about the citizens' safety in the spring cold snap. Today we are with Oleksandr Khorunzhyi, Press Secretary of the State Emergency Service of Ukraine, and Anatolii Shkarbuta, Emergency Prevention Department of the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. Hello. So, the spring has started, but it's not that certain. We can see snow and wet snow and another cold snap, which is going one by one with the warmer weather. So we should speak about the fires in the ecosystems, first of all, because of the human factor. Anatolii, first, could you tell what statistics tells us about the figures which we can see which are connected with the fires? Well, in fact, really, since the beginning of the year, our state had more than 20,000 fires. Out of them, more than 4,000 of fires were in the residential blocks, and also more than 10,000 of fires emerged in the ecosystems of the state. Unfortunately, we can see the increase of the number of such fires in comparison with the last year. It is connected, first of all, with the world changes of the climate. That is, it's becoming warmer. And also, sometimes it's just not that cautious treatment of fire by the citizens of our state. What's the situation in the regions? Which regions have the biggest number of fires? The biggest number of fires takes place, we are observing it on the territory of altogether our whole state, I would say. But most of all, in the southern regions and central ones, here we can see the biggest number of fires and people dying in fires. Could you please name the numbers? How many fires took place this year and how these figures can be compared with the figures of the last year? I've already mentioned such figures, in fact, so let me only mention that as for the number of people who died or were injured during 2025, more than 490 people died in fires. Among them, 10%. It's 10% more than during the same period last year. 14 children among them. More than 450 people were injured. It's 16% more than during the same period last year. 22 of them are children. These are the figures which make our service take certain measures on the prevention of fires, both in the residential blocks and in the ecosystems. Just recently, at the meeting of the State Commission of the State Emergency Service, we took a decision to take additional complex of measures to prevent fires. And we've involved all of the stakeholders of the executive branch, military administrations, and local self-governance authorities. They have to be involved in this process. They will take certain measures. We are conducting the broad information campaign to train the population of safe behavior. And we do hope that we will cope to decrease the number of fires, in particular dying or traumatizing of people. What's the amount of fine for the fire in the ecosystems? Has it changed, and do you plan to change it? Because the number of fires is not decreasing. Yes, the amount of fine, with the help of the Parliament of Ukraine, was increased. Now it's from 1.5 thousand to more than 6,000 hryvnia, depending on the violation and perpetration, but the State Emergency Service does not focus on that. First and foremost, we are conducting the explanation works with the people, but as for the violators, they are taken to administrative liability. And also, I'd like to say that in the National Police, in the State Emergency Service, in the ecology employees, and also in the Forestry Service, where they have more and more drones, with the help of which we find violators much quicker. It's much easier to find out who the violator is on the private areas. That is why this year even, in the beginning of the season, we've got more than 1,000 people who were fined, who were taken to liability. And it's a shame that mostly the ones who burn dry leaves, who are the arsonists, those are older people who, according to the Soviet ideology, got used to burn dry leaves in spring. They need to be fined. They are the violators and the arsonists. But first we conduct explanation works, then we take them to liability. As for the fires in the private buildings, what are the main reasons of those fires? Statistical data tells us that the main reasons of the fire in the residential block is the uncautious or careless treatment with fire. Secondly, it is the violation of the requirements for the use of electric wires. Those are the main reasons of the fires. That is why we are focusing the attention of the citizens that they need to comply with the requirements of fire safety according to all of the information on the safety in the activity. You can take all this information at the information resources of the State Emergency Service, the authorities, and the local self-governance authorities. You can also call the hotline, where the employees of State Emergency Service will definitely consult you how you should properly act under this or that emergency conditions, how to prevent it, in particular the fires. What are the widely spread mistakes of the people when they use heaters or different electric devices which lead to fires? First of all, we are speaking about inappropriate use of open fire. And the second reason is the electrical grid, which is overloaded. We can see when there is a cold snap, then there is the increase of number of fires because of the heating devices or that careless treatment with fire. They can connect the older obsolete devices to the electric grid with obsolete wires. That is why the State Emergency Service recommends first and foremost to get ready to the heating season, to check with the help of the experts in the certain sphere, their electrical grid, the heating devices, whether it's a stove or a gas or electric one. You should also check and use the recommendations of the producers of heating devices. That is compulsory, and that will definitely lead to the substantial decrease of number of fires. And of course, during the use of the heating devices, you don't need to leave them without attention, because this is how these processes can get out of control, and sometimes the number of fires is increasing and people may die. Thank you, Anatolii. Oleksandr, the next question goes to you, and it is connected with such an unstable March weather when we see both warming and then cold snap. So the question is about safety on water, because the ice is melting. So what's the current situation with the safety on the water, and is it acceptable still to go and step onto the ice on the open pools? Let me add to Anatolii words first. Why do we conduct the briefing on the increase of number of fires and people dying because of the use of heating devices and stoves? Just during the weekend, we had 13 people died during the fires in the residential blocks, in the accommodations. 13 people. There were 2 group cases among them, when 3 persons died, among whom there are children. So that is why we emphasize that that was already the warm temperature, above 0. So the people stopped using heating devices that much, But then there was a very acute cold snap, as you can see it now. People begin to do that again, but they don't think about safety measures. I mean, heating, stoves, and there are many cases out of these 13 deceased. More than 150 fires took place during the weekend only in the residential block just because of the stoves. The stoves also foresee the appropriate use of the devices. There shouldn't be cracks in the chimneys, and people should provide the metallic plate in front of the stove. And what else I'd like to drive your attention to, there is such an issue which leads to demise of people, that is the gas. The carbon monoxide, which is an invisible murderer. Here we recommend to install the detectors of carbon monoxide, especially where you have the stove heating, where you use gas boilers, so that you could provide such a signal about the danger for the people. It is working automatically when the accessible norm of carbon monoxide is too high. And even during the night, people may hear the signal and leave the premises. They can at least ventilate the premises as it's not felt first. It's also a problem during the heating period. We conduct the information campaigns, in particular with the Ministry of Healthcare, and we emphasize their attention on the safety measures, in particular what needs to be done when carbon monoxide is the reason and is affecting the people. And now about the measures, safety measures taken by the State Emergency Service. Just a couple of words. Anatolii really said that there was the commission of the State Emergency Service which defined we are actively getting ready to the spring-summer period. Why do we do that? Why do we pay that active attention to that? Because we really have processes of warming already. You can look at the world processes. We have high-scale fires in California or in Spain, and we can see the increase of the temperatures. Just look at January. It was totally warm. Pay attention that there is no snow cover, in fact. So all of that can be the precondition for the development of fires in the open areas and ecosystems. And here there are certain measures on the work with the balance owners of the areas and also of the forestries to conduct some of the prevention measures, to have the necessary melioration, and to provide the reserve of the State Emergency Service equipment to respond. Because in the forestry, they also have the fire equipment to extinguish fires, the coordination of actions, working on the plans, all of that is rehearsed so that the State Emergency Service could respond quickly. And we're already doing that. There was a briefing recently. I told that in January we registered just a huge number of fires. We never had it in winter before, that the open areas and dry grass and even partially forests are on fire. That is why we are taking the maximum efforts with all of the stakeholders, central and local authorities. That's what I'd like to mention additionally. Now about the water. Unfortunately, we can register the increase of the number of cases of deaths on water. What is it connected with? Again, with the shifts of the temperatures and certain warming. The peak peak values which we registered was in December or January. We had warm months, but when we could see ice on the pools, people somehow wanted instantly to go fishing, and the children wanted to check whether the ice is strong enough. And during these peak periods, when we have the transition period from the warm to cold and vice versa, there is the increase of the number of the people who died or being affected. Statistical data: 142 people since the beginning of 2025 died on water. Those are the huge, colossal numbers. all of that is connected with the safety measures and in compliance with certain safety measures, among them 11 children. In 2024, we registered 125 people, so you can see that we have a bit of increase in comparison with the previous year, and in 2024 there used to be 9 children. Unfortunately, the statistics is growing. I already mentioned the reasons, and we managed to save 130 people, among them 32 children. So I will not just delve deeper and tell you more about the safety measures, whether you need to check the thickness of the eye, what the color of the eyes should be, what you should take on you, and how to check the eyes. I would like to specifically talk and urge you. Now, you should not go to the ice of the pools, on the ice. You shouldn't step. It's really dangerous. We definitely do not recommend do that. We cannot prohibit, but of course we do not recommend to step on ice, because now we can see drops of temperatures, the above zero during the day and below zero during the night, and the ice is totally unstable. It is totally fragile. And one recommendation goes to everyone: don't step on the ice of the pools now. If maybe there is no ice on the rivers because it has the flow and the depth, but on the pools and in the rural areas, this ice is still there. So we can register certain cases since the beginning, during the 3 months already, even since the beginning of this week. 3 people died. Parents and teachers have to conduct certain works in the educational institutions and explain that this is maximum danger to step on ice. And in this information explanation work, they need to drive additional attention to that, to explain to the children that they don't have anything to do closer to the pools. Thank you. But you were speaking about the 3 people who died this week already. What were the regions when they died? I can't tell you definitely. This is just the overall statistics. 3 people since the beginning of this week died. In particular, if we take the number of deceased, the vast majority, unfortunately, are the fishermen who are stepping on the ice in spite of the danger. They don't mind about the thickness of the ice. They just step on it, and they don't understand the danger which it may pose. They even can go that far from the bank that you cannot even respond quickly, both the people who are around them and the units of the State Emergency Service. Thank you, Oleksandr and Anatolii. I will remind that we were speaking about the citizen safety in the unstable temperatures of spring, but we'll go on at 12 when we'll be speaking about the future space engineering in our country. Stay with us.